Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good early morning. I know people are watching this all around the world. You have reached Saturday Science Chats. Yes, I didn't even put my earphones in. I'm like totally unprepared today. But anyways, I want to welcome everybody. I did find out that I was sending out emails to almost 1,000 people worldwide without ever putting down what time we started. That was kind of tragic. So those who do receive me emails, and you can receive emails by subscribing to our website. You can go to naturalphilosophy.org, put your email in there, and you can subscribe, of course. But today we're going to be talking about a great subject. And oh, you see my T-shirt? This is from one of our conferences when we used to get together. I thought was an interesting thing about this is the T-shirt here has the Greek letter phi. Yes, that is the pronunciation for this letter. It happens to be the first letter in Greek for philosophy. It also happens to be the first letter for natural. So natural philosophy both start with this. Then I made it into a sort of like a tree, like an apple, Newton. Pretty cool. Anyways, that is our logo for the CNPS. But of course, I do want to thank everybody who is tuning in from both the John Chappell Natural Philosophy Society and, of course, our Dissident Science YouTube channel. So I want to thank everybody for their attendance. We've got a great talk today, and that is from a critical perspectives, the majority is always wrong. And boy, do I have something. I know I'm going to ruffle a lot of feathers, especially the people in our group, but also a lot of compliments for anybody. So it's both sides. Um, I would say more on the positive side and things for what we can do to make ourselves a better organization and do better at what we're trying to do outside the mainstream. So, you know, are we hurting our own selves by not doing certain things? And I'm going to talk about that. It's going to be really fun. Of course, I want to congratulate you for tuning in. You are a different and rarer type of person. As Aristotle says, it is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting that. Well, what does that actually mean? Well, that means that you can look at somebody's new idea and suspend your criticism and let the person talk. Let the person try to convince you of some type of argument or an idea. And we are so much better off when we do that. A lot of us just close things off right away and say, oh, I don't even want to listen to that. So we want to make sure we're careful in not doing that. Um, let's keep going here. Oh, wait, no, of course. I want to thank everybody for subscribing to our channels. We've got over 4,000 now at Dissonant Science, and we are approaching 1,000 on the CNPS. But please like and subscribe. If you're watching this, or even if you're briefly stepping in and you think this is a great endeavor to support people working outside of mainstream science who are doing real science, then please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and that will be really, really important to us because those algorithms go up. We get lots and lots more views. And as you accumulate more views, the algorithms get more people in our direction. So that's always great. So again, congratulations for watching. You are already a different kind of person. Of course, our mission here is to be an organization that promotes above all, critical thinking without malice. That is, we let people who are doing good scientific work to present here, even if it's against mainstream ideas, which a lot of us, of course, know mainstream's got a lot of problems. To be an organization that supports, publishes, and promotes serious scientific work outside mainstream science, to provide a forum for modern topics in physics, cosmology, philosophy, and mathematics, to provide a forum for presenting serious papers and theories without fear of censorship, to be run and controlled in its entirety by the paid membership, including the election of its directors and members. I'm just wondering here, I'm going to be showing a video later on. I may have to, okay, talking to myself here. Keep going, Dave. We do have websites, so if you haven't, this is your first time turning in, I know people who tune in all the time have to go through this, but it is worth it because a lot of people, this is the first time they're watching our organizations, either Dissident Science or Not Philosophy. And of course, we have a great website beyond mainstream.org. And that's where you can read like an online magazine for critical thinkers. You can find out all the problems with mainstream, all the great people. You've seen a lot of them here on our channel, on this channel. I guess you call it a channel, website, not website, channel, vlog, uh, podcasts. There's just so many names out there, but these that is where you're going to find very easy reading for those people who are interested in really learning about critical thinkers outside the mainstream. Of course, we have a naturalphilosophy.org where critical thinking communities. And man, I will tell you, the discussion's been hot and heavy. If you haven't been there, go to naturalphilosophy.org, register, and my gosh, they're great discussions. We have lots of discussion groups, people bantering back and forth about relativity, about ether, et cetera, et cetera. And I always, of course, get in there, and people hate my guts because I don't think there's an ether. I think there's a better model. So, but hey, I'm in there just like everybody else, and wanted to let everybody know you can go there and start and join in the fun about critical thinker. You don't have to be a scientist to do it. You're allowed to be a critical thinker in any profession you do. In fact, in the early 1900s, late 1800s, 1900s, very common for groups to get together with poets, philosophers, artists, musicians, scientists, all together talking about everything. And if you were a musician, you could talk just about as much about science as scientists can talk about music. So it's something we just don't do enough of these days, I think. We've been so compartmentalized. Also, we have our Wikipedia, which is the National Philosophy Wikipedia. It's got over 10,000 pages. If you have work and want to put that in there, just, of course, contact us. And yes, we live and die by our memberships. And I want to thank everybody who has signed up. We have an automatic system, and that can be either monthly or annual, or you can just simply make a donation. We have all of those. We have people donating memberships of $5 a month if you're on a fixed budget. Some people even more per month, and then annually if you want to do it in one-time payment, you can. Again, it's all automated. You get onto our system on our website, naturalphilosophy.org, naturalphilosophy.org. I should put it on this slide, and you can join up. And it is vital to have your patronage. Now, I want to thank these people who have made generous donations to our organization: Nick Percival, Dr. Cynthia Whitney, our chief scientist, and of the CMPS, Ramsey, who's a pen name. He's made a lot of donations and also has a membership at the same time. And of course, all of our annual and monthly memberships. Without you, we will not survive. We need your vital help. I calculated we need almost $200 a month. So if you can become a member, please, please help, because once we get to a point where we can't pay for it, we're off the air. Everything kind of stops. So, coming soon, we've got George Coyne. Oh, I spelled that so wrong. Oh my gosh, he's going to kill me. It's let me see here. Coming soon. Here we go. I think it's Y-N-E. I'm sorry. It's I'm making these things like many people. I have my regular job, and I put these together as best I can. But George Coyne is putting together a history of the Big Bang, our sort of evolving vision of perspectives, evolving perspectives of the history of science. And this one will be in that series. We've already had one on quantum mechanics by Eric Reeder, which was just absolutely stunning. I love Eric and his work. Just so stimulates the brain a lot. We're going to have him back, I'm sure, too. And then Nick Percival, who is an expert in special relativity, and I mean expert, probably one of maybe the foremost expert in special relativity on the planet today. He is putting together a history of special relativity. He said that's going to be a talk in two parts. My dad has done a third experiment, and I believe a third experiment on electronic components. And it'd be interesting, especially we have a lot of electrical engineers. What the heck is happening what is a possible model for what's happening inside? Our model, the particle model, we call it, probably should call it the Hilster model, since I've heard people use the particle model in general for maybe the Hello, Dave. Can't thank the standard model. But anyways, he will be talking about that, like diodes and transistors and all that. It's very interesting to see a possible interpretation because right now all we have is empirical equations. And we do have a new person who will be coming up and discussing. Unfortunately, he lives in Hawaii, and he's going to be discussing an article he wrote actually about the Big Bang. I got this sort of wrong, but he's going to be discussing the Big Bang, expanding Earth, alternative models, and other topics in physics and cosmology. He happens to be a fairly famous person, so would be really great. He's willing to come on the show. We are going to push that show 3 hours ahead. So instead of starting 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time or 3 or 4 p.m. in Europe, it's going to be starting at 6 or 7 in Europe and 1 p.m. That will be on March 5th. Getting a person like him on board is absolutely great. He's watching the video. He says he likes our videos. Of course, you'd have to watch them because what time is it right now in Hawaii? 5 a.m., folks. So that'll be great. So I'm going to be talking, of course, about the majority is always wrong. I saw a video on this and I thought it was very, very interesting. And it got me thinking. And I think you're going to really, you got to stay tuned for this talk. I mean, I put together some really interesting thoughts I have never put together. And I think it's going to blow your mind in the sense of looking at what we have and what we can do, what we're not doing. I pretty much have tried to look at this almost as, you know, NASA or SpaceX. What are we doing and what are we trying to do? And very interesting what I came up with. So this is going to be a talk, and then of course it's going to be open discussion. But again, the majority is always wrong. And more than that, the people outside, are we doing the right thing? Are we our own worst enemies? What's really happening? And what can we do to really make something, something different, make a change in science, something we all want to do because the universities won't do it. So, oh, and I thought, oh, I never talk about myself, so this is sort of my bio, just for those who don't know me. So I'm going to read it as if it was somebody else. So here we go. David Hilster is a computer scientist, artist, musician, filmmaker, and YouTube vlogger who became interested in physics and cosmology, having met physicist Dr. Riccardo Carosani in the early 1990s. David has his bachelor degree in mathematics and architecture and his master's in linguistics, and works in the area of artificial intelligence, specifically in the area of human language, and is co-author of the computer language NLP++. Dave was also represented by the Los Angeles County Museum of Art as an up-and-coming artist in the 1990s. In 1996, David met John Chappell, founder of the Natural Philosophy Alliance, and from 2005 to 2013 made the documentary Einstein Wrong, the Miracle Year. After working with his father in the film, David and his father co-authored the book Principia Mathematica 2, a complete toolkit for the physical universe. Currently, David works in the supercomputing department of LexisNexis, specializing in creating digital human readers, and is president of the CMPS. What a bunch of malarkey, huh? No, it's like, well, I figured I'd put that down there. I just got to treat everybody sort of equally. So there you go. The agenda for today, we're going to watch a video by Paul Rolkins, which really got me thinking about all this and actually took me in a kind of different direction. Thinking outside the box, we're going to be talking about that as he does. And then what should we do? And that's what you've got to stay. Of course, if you're reading, you really want to get the whole picture here, because what I say to do it doesn't make a whole lot of sense unless you stay for the whole talk, and then hopefully stimulating discussion after for everyone to yell at me and say, oh my gosh, what are you doing? So here we go. We're going to take a look at this video. I'm going to take this down here. Whoops. Let's see. Sorry about this. Where's my, oh, here it is. My other talk here. Here we go. Oops, nope. Here we go. There we go. Sorry, guys. We're going to take this. In fact, I'm going to have to probably bring this down. I'm going to remove this, stop the screen share. I'm going to screen share again because I believe I have to put in the audio. Yes, I do. Before everybody starts screaming, I didn't have that. There we go. I think we're good. And I know I have people in the green room. I've got James and Ian and Eric. Please give me a thumbs up if you do hear this. Okay. All righty.
In 1942, Albert Einstein was teaching at Oxford University. And one day, he just gave an exam of physics to his senior class of physics students. And he was walking on the campus with his assistant. And all of a sudden, the assistant looked at Albert Einstein and said, Dr. Einstein, this exam which you just gave to the senior class of physics students, isn't that exactly the same exam you gave to exactly the same class 1 year ago? Yeah, said Albert Einstein, it's exactly the same. But Dr. Einstein, how could you possibly do that? The assistant said. Well, said Einstein, the answers have changed. The answers have changed. In other words, what is true for 1942 is even more true for today. We live in a world where the questions might be the same, but the answers have changed. In other words, what has got you here will no longer get you there. And if you want to have results that you've never had before, well, you need to start doing things you've never done before. Now, the key question for today is, of course, is there a method to the madness? Is there a way that each of us can do impossible things to truly create dramatic results? And the good news is that the answer to that question is yes. Because what I'm going to explain today is, when it comes to high performance, why the majority is always wrong, and how you can use that to get everything you can out of everything you've got. But let me first introduce you to something interesting, an interesting observation. When people, teams, and organizations, whenever they hit a wall, they tend to do one of two things. They either do more of the same things, or they do less of the same things. But what you very seldom see is that they start to do different things instead. And it's interesting, if you look at the data, approximately 3% of people are inclined to even do different things. And the remaining 97% continues to smash into the wall, like some kind of crazy energy bunny on steroids. And why is that? Why is that? And to understand what is going on here, we need to ask ourselves another question. And the question we need to ask ourselves is, what is the purpose of thinking? What is the purpose of thinking? Now, if you ask that question to a brain scientist, the brain scientist will say, well, the purpose of thinking is to stop thinking. The purpose of thinking is to stop thinking. Now, what does she mean by that? Well, here's the thing. Thinking is a high-energy activity. It takes a lot of energy to think. So whenever we think, we try to think as short as possible, and then we return to automatic pilot. Over 95% of our life, we run on automatic pilot. For example, if you've ever driven a car and then you realize, whoa, what did I do in the past half an hour? That's your brain on automatic pilot. Yeah? Another example, many of you right now are listening to me on automatic pilot. And I know who you are. Yeah. Now, here's the thing. If your brain is an automatic pilot, this leads to what the scientists call mental myopia, also known as tunnel vision. And if you have tunnel vision, that's a bit of a problem, because it confuses people about their own performance. And this is the reason that many people go through life acting like a mediocre race car driver who sits in his car, looks in his rearview mirror, sees his competition, and is so far behind that they think they are first. Yeah. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, we tend to think inside the box, and the box is a very good metaphor here. So let me draw a box. And if you take a close look at the box, you see that the boundaries of this box are very well defined. So we think inside defined boundaries. I'll give you an example. One boundary is a legal boundary, and we think within the legal framework. I'll give you an example. Very few of you would think of stealing the wallet of the person next to you in order to fund your next cool startup. Yeah? At least that's what I hope. Yeah? So we think in legal boundaries, but there are other boundaries as well. We think in technological boundaries, we think in physical boundaries, but we also think in moral boundaries. And this is why we think inside the box. At least, that's what we think. Because the reality is that the box in which we think looks more like this. Now, for those of you in the back who cannot see it, the reason is this is a very small box. And let me illustrate how small this box can be. For example, if I would say tonight, let's have something to eat, have dinner tonight, what would be options to do that? And probably you can come up with, hey, let's buy some pizza, go to a restaurant, cook at home, all kind of cool ideas. But I believe that very few of you would raise their hand and say, hey, let's go to the highway close by, see if we can pick up some dead animals on the side of the road and prepare ourselves a crispy dinner. That's a disturbing thought. But here's the funny thing, for many people in the world, this would be a perfectly normal response. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah, so what it shows is that the box in which we think is actually very, very small. And if you take a closer look at your industry or professional field, you also think inside a very small box. And the boundaries of this box, they are called industry standards or industry norms. For example, if you are in the restaurant business, then the industry standard is that people come to your establishment, they eat, and then they pay. That's the standard. That's how everyone is doing it. Another example, if you are in the banking business, this norm is that people give you money, you say thank you very much, and you give the money to someone else. I mean, that's banking. So those are standards, those are norms in the industry or professional field. But this is what you need to know. The word norm is an abbreviation for normal. In other words, if you do what everyone else is doing, you get the results that everyone else is getting, and those are normal results. And the thing is, what we are after today are extraordinary results. Yeah? So the key question is, of course, how can you kick yourself out the box? Out this very small box of your industry and professional field and move to the happy place where cool innovation happens. Yeah, how can you do that? Now, let me introduce you the curious case of the London taxi drivers. If you want to become a taxi driver in London, you need to know the entire city by heart. And this is called the knowledge. And you can imagine it takes years to get the knowledge in your head. And that's a bit of a problem if you want to rapidly expand your taxi business. So they ask themselves a question. How can we rapidly expand our taxi business while at the same time employing taxi drivers who do not know anything about the City of London? And then they came up with a very ingenious solution. What he said is, well, actually, then we make two kinds of taxis. One is a normal taxi, and the other taxi has a big sign on it which says, the driver of this vehicle does not know anything about the City of London, but loves to get directions from you. And that's a brilliant solution, because this attracted those people who lived in London, knew the city very well, and finally could pay boss in a taxi. Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this sounds like a very cute story. But there's much more than meets the eye. Because what we have found is that breakthrough innovation, extraordinary results happen when people decide to finally break the standards or the norms in their industry or professional field. And you see this over and over again. For example, if you would have a furniture business and one day you would decide to no longer assemble furniture for your customers, probably you would end up with a company called IKEA. Yeah. Another example, if you own a computer business and one day you would decide to no longer sell your computer using a physical store, probably you would end up with a company called Dell Computers. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, what it tells us, there is a method to the madness. And by understanding that the majority is always wrong when it comes to high performance, finally you have the opportunity to Quit fixing things and move to massive innovation instead. Ladies and gentlemen, the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius once said that the object of life is not to side with the majority, but the object of life is to escape finding oneself joining the ranks of the clinically insane. If you do what everyone else is doing, you're not distinguishing yourself and you're probably stuck. And this is why, when it comes to high performance, the majority is always wrong. This is what we know. We know that 3% of people are able to achieve extraordinary results. And each of you can become part of those 3% by deciding as of today to break your industry standards and to break your industry norms. The alternative, of course, is that you become part of the 97% who in the end works for those 3%. And as of today, that choice is completely yours. Thank you very much.
Okay, I thought that was very, very good. In fact, it stimulated this entire talk that I'm going to be showing you now. Let me just get everything going here and get us back to the slides. But it certainly, I won't have to, I'm not going to talk about because I'm going to talk in slides every time I start talking about it before I have my slides here. So let's go ahead and take a look at how this sort of affects us. So here we go. Thinking outside the box. Remember those boxes that they had. The good news is, if we start with the good news, is that 90% of science, physics, cosmology, tectonics, mathematics, philosophy, including the particle physics and the standard model, the Big Bang, relativity, plate tectonics, real number system, atomic structure, dark matter, things like that, crazy things like that, that we or you who are here, most of you are. Everybody's seeing this. Everybody's cool, right? Everybody seeing this? I just want to double check. Okay, everybody seeing the slides? Everything's good? All right. So just double checking. Okay, and so we have the particle physics. Again, we have all of these things, and you are part of the 3%. So that's the good side of it. That's the good side, that if you are here, you can, see, stream suspended for policy violations. Oh, do people, oh, some people, because oh. So some people are saying that I'm getting, because I streamed that, because of the oh, no wonder I've got lots of people falling. Boy, did I just learn something bad here, huh? My dad came in and said something about that. All righty. Well, that's kind of sucky. So I found out you can't restream those things. I think people in the green room are still there. Hey, Dad. Is it back?
I got back in, but I had to X out of where I was. I had, you know, up here, I had multiple channels, and when I clicked it, I X'd out of it.
Okay,
and
we got
moved.
back. Okay, I think it's back. Are we starting to get people back? Okay, good. All right. Wow. Big brother. They don't like what we're saying, huh? No, okay. I can, we see Dad. Yay. Okay.
Wait,
All right.
well, I'm going to go think outside the room.
Okay, he's going to think outside the room. I can see nothing yet. Okay, some of you people are going to, it's going to take some time. Okay, uh, it is event, I think if you can come back. Okay, got it. All right. Sorry about that, folks. Boy, we lost a bunch of people too. Oh, that's going to be really great. Oh, this is such a good talk too. Oh my goodness. All right, we're back. Boy, circle the horizontal line stream unavailable. Yeah, it will eventually come back. Sorry about that, folks. What we had there is I didn't realize that streaming a video for us to watch, they would give us some copyright violations in some parts of the world. So I believe we are hopefully coming back. So I see some people are still not there. Stream suspended for policy violations. I think if you try to come back in, try to come back into the streaming, if you try that. So I guess we're getting some people back. I'm seeing that we are getting our audience back up. We're it's taking some time. So I guess I'm going to keep going, and I will not stop now. If you come in late, you can watch the recording, of course. And I do apologize, everybody. You know, what do I know? I didn't know you could watch a video on YouTube, which is public for everybody. Like I'm going to make money off of this, so who knows? Here we go. Let's go back and continue here. So let's go back to what I was saying. Again, we watched a video that stopped our streaming. I apologize for that. And now we are talking about thinking outside the box. So basically what he's saying is 97% of the people will do what everybody else is doing. And of course, if you are one of the 3%, you know that for a couple of reasons. One is the things that everybody accepts, for some reason you are not accepting those things, that you looked at something in physics or cosmology or tectonics or mathematics, philosophy, whatever it is, and you've decided that you just don't agree with that, and you have just become part of the 3%. The other way you're sort of you're aware of that is being part of the 3% is you can be ostracized, that people will think you're crazy. You're like, yeah, the Big Bang, that's ridiculous. It's just a ridiculous notion. And it turns out that, of course, it isn't a ridiculous notion, that the Big Bang has a lot of problems, but you sort of get persecuted by that. So here we go. Let's keep going, folks. And outside the box, we have our critical thinkers. And this is our community. Here are things that I believe people talk a lot about. Ether, it's a huge thing that people talk. It's not part of mainstream. Charge is part of mainstream, but it's still part of this group quite a lot. Gravity, electric field, magnetic field expansion tectonics, real number system replacements, atomic structure, electric universe. These are some of the areas that people in critical thinking are thinking. But who is outside of that? That's an interesting question, because I was making these boxes and it was like, what, of course, are the things that in our world, in the CMPS world, in our dissident science world, in our critical thinking world, who are the people even outside of that? And that's what I'm going to try to take a look to today. Let's take a look at Newton light. So if we took a look at light, ether has been around for almost 400 years, probably even longer. I know it's probably disputable. And here are some of the people that have more modern ideas. But ether, Newton had thought of had looked and toyed with an ether. Glenn Borker, etherists. Jeff Yee's etherists. Danu's etherists. Now these are only a small amount of people. There's a ton of etherists. Electric Universe people are etherists. A vast majority of CMPS etherists, and I put Bob in 2015, not an atheist. That's Bob D. Hilster. And now, one of the things he said, and this thing's going to make people mad when I say this, but it is true. Ether's been around for hundreds of years. And what has happened was when the photoelectric effect came along, and Einstein said, hey, there's a photon, that it's a particle, light's a particle. and before that it was like a wave. Then you got into the problem, well, Einstein sort of got rid of ether. Michelson Morley showed they were trying to find ether. They couldn't find it. The mainstream basically killed off ether, both Einstein, Michelson Morley. And yeah, the thing is that we still want a mechanical or a physical explanation for light. And so we go back and we say, no, it's not, we just didn't do it right. We didn't, when we measured the experiment, we didn't really know what we were looking at. Michelson Morley is wrong in their interpretations. There really is a change. These four people have done ether-like Michelson Morley experiments. They have shown that there is a difference. Well, no, the problem with ether, yes, we know the problems with ether, transverse waves, etc., things like that. Elasticity that has to be absurd. The ability to mechanically have collisions, an immense amount of collisions to go 10 billion light years and reach our eyes. What is elasticity of those kinds of things? What is it? It's really, we just haven't gotten to it. But the truth of the matter is, if I were to look in this and the outside, from inside, I see that ether has been around for 400 years. If somebody had really come up with something that really nailed it, I think, it would really happen. It seems like we're still playing around in the ether world, that no one came along and said, there could be a totally different model. And until 2015, I couldn't have made this box because my father came up with a completely different, very simple alternative to ether. And so here's an example. It's something that when you look at it, it's not easy for us in our group to have somebody say this. And I know people are going to be mad as hell, but it doesn't matter because maybe it's true. Maybe this tweaking, thinking inside the box for 400 years, tweaking when playing with the things and its properties, and it's just didn't get quite right. But if we listen to the guy in the lecture, then maybe we need to start looking outside of that ether box. Is there some completely different idea that can form? Okay, let's look at gravity. Here's a graviton and ether in our groups. Again, this is dissidence. And if you look at gravity, well, we have the graviton, Lesage, de Hilster. Our model has that. So we're not thinking outside the box on that. Ether, people are saying that gravity comes from ether. So my explanation to the people outside of this group, if I'm describing this group, I would say, look, people are desperate and rightly so to give light a physicality. And ether seems to be very attractive because we see light as waves. We don't realize that, we used to see television as analog, but it's digital now. That light can't be digital like my father's model. But so because they say, okay, there's ether, we just didn't know what we're doing, then in their major, and I explain it to people, I say, there's this need for us, and it's rightly so, to come up with a mechanical model for light and a physical model for light. And people want to do that, and they want to tweak it, and they have their own versions. Glenn Borchert's, they're like galaxies, swirling galaxies. They're flat, sort of flying saucer shaped. Ether for Jeff Yee creates the particles, standing wave particles. Nell Deneau is an ether theory, and electric universe. If you look at all those, I believe, if I'm not wrong, that all those people, once they say, I got light, then, hey, that describes everything. Ether then can describe everything, including gravity. And okay, that's where that comes from. It starts with light, but really ends up, hey, can I describe gravity? And there's plenty more. Duncan Shaw has a really interesting one as well. He can be included that. And then if you look outside the box in our group, I think the most interesting one, and the one that people will disagree with absolutely the most, but I have to take my hat off to, is James Carter. Because James Carter says gravity isn't being pushed down. It's everything accelerating up and getting bigger, and it's being pushed from below. Now, people go, that's just crazy. That's not the way the world works. But in truth and reality, he's thinking outside the box. He's saying to himself, okay, what can I think of that is completely different? And for some reason, he got this idea in his head and he came up. So to me, that's probably the most, outside the box of anybody. Doesn't mean it's right because it's outside the box. Doesn't mean it's right. But it certainly is interesting. And I'm going to talk about in the end how we sabotage ourselves from seeing work like James Carter and just throwing it aside when we really shouldn't. Other people who have gravity. Bill Lucas has his force equation. It's not a physical explanation. It's more of a force explanation. It's an thing between the forces in nature. He's got the four forces into one equation, which is very large. I really admired his work because of the way he goes about it. I really love his work. It's not a physical model, so he does say that electrons, I think, are toroids, but again, he has a very different idea of what gravity is. Jeff Yee is the same way, very similar in some sense to Bill Lucas, from what I can see. But if you go to energywavetheory.org or .com, you'll find Jeff Yee's explanation for gravity. Again, it's more at a atomic level. That's a great way to think of it, because the graviton problem, like we have, it's got problems. I mean, and it's not the problems I think people think, but it can have problems depending on your entire model. And then Albert Einstein, of course, has space-time, which again has zero physicality, but he came along, and that's the one people have sorry to say this, but have gravitated to. And so here is people thinking outside of the box. You notice, I don't care who you are. I know relativity is wrong, folks, in my opinion. If you just take the time to look at relativity, every person that I admire as a critical thinker, every person who has taken a look at Albert Einstein's relativity has come away with just a myriad of problems, Even my father, even after the Einstein Wrong documentary, which he was one of the stars of, and at the opening of the film, I asked him point blank in our discussion after the documentary we showed to the audience. He goes, "Hey, Dad, so is Einstein wrong?" I don't know. I haven't looked into it. Then he looked into it. Next thing he knows, he gives a paper on it. He's got like 3,000 views on our CNPS website. So again, Albert Einstein's there. I don't care, mainstream or not, right or wrong. To me, it's interesting, Albert Einstein's, Bill Lucas, and even James Carter, but to me is what is the physical, where's the physicality of all those things? Where does that happen? Why does it happen? Jeff Yee is probably closer in the sense of that, of what the physicality would be, but that's one thing. Okay, charge. Okay, you have Newton, Maxwell, many dissonants, mainstream, and then you have a whole host of new people thinking outside the box who says charge is an arbitrary attribute. You put a plus sign on the proton, you put a negative sign in the electron, and they attract. And if you have two negatives, they repel. And you ask them why. Well, they have different charges. Well, what does that mean physically? They don't know. So there are people in our group who are thinking outside the box. Very small percentage of them. Borkert, Denew, Jeff Yee, the Hilsters are all of us. Say there is no charge. It's a wonderful system that was invented by, there are a lot of people talked about the repulsion and attraction, but the plus and minus came from Benjamin Franklin, believe it or not. And so there's another example. Magnetism. Basically, there's just no physicality in mainstream. And also, actually, most of the dissidents as well. I'm going to put that in. Whoops. I'm going to put that there too. Most dissidents. All right, save it from the current slide. I love doing this live. So anyways, no physicality, mainstream and most dissidents. Magnetism, Yonel Denou, has the Denou effect. I gave it that term, so if you look up Denou effect, you're not going to find it only in our literature, but the Denou effect has to be that orbiting or, orbiting or particles in circles, when they meet in different directions, they repulse, and particles in the same directions come together, make things come together. That's Yonel Denou. Absolutely, in my opinion, found out, really gave us the physicality of magnets. And so we use it. Yonel Denou and Glenn Borkert, of course, use it in ether. My question to those people are, if you are thinking with me, you have an ether there. If the ether is swirling around a magnet, then what happens to the light waves that go through the magnetic field, which is swirling? If you have swirling water and you send a wave through it, it doesn't go through there as if it didn't exist. So that was my question on that. Sorry. Side. Bon. I told you I'm going to get in trouble. But anyways, Yonel Denou is going to go down in history, in my opinion, for this Denou effect. Most people don't pay attention to it. They talk about, oh, does a negative charged electron, does that create an electromagnetic field? What's the field? What are all these things physically? What's a magnetic field? What's an electric field? Is there a difference? So people talk about it. They write equations about it. They're empirical equations with it. Maxwell all over the place. And I sit around going, well, this is the physical world. All forces to me are not magical. They just like magnetism isn't nothing. It's not just some empirical equation. What is it? And so most people don't look at it. They talk in their own little worlds of all these other things, when in fact we already have a very good idea of what magnetism is, thanks to the underwater experiment started in 2006 in his kids' pool in Thailand. He's from Romania, though. Brilliant work. Atomic structure. We have, oh wow, that's the exact atomic structure. I'm not talking about just how it works. It's more of how the actual atomic structure is I would say, made. And we have, of course, the periodic table in the mainstream, and we have lots of people outside that have really amazing models for atomic structure. Bill Lucas does, Jeff Yee does, James Carter, Vlad Ginsburg, Stoyan Sarge, and I'm sure there are many, many, many more. Well, not many, many more, but many more. But there are people out there who are saying, I'm not satisfied with the periodic table. I think it's made up in a different way. The only thing I would say, if you do look at these, is you find, again, one system, oftentimes, unfortunately, you have one system that's sort of arbitrarily replaced with another. Because if you ask a person, well, where did the rings come from? Well, they're rings in sort of an ether. Well, how do those rings give form, and how come they come together, and et cetera, et cetera. Now, they may have some system they talk about, but then when you pin down the physicality, you have some problems. The only person close to that is Jeff Yee, but yet, even with Jeff Yee, as we have it, my dad and I have it in his book, Jeff Yee has amazing physical models that he has been funding, actually, to do the nucleus of atoms using protons, and then protons being made up of quarks. And he's saying that between Coulomb's force and a magnetic force, that you can describe why an electron goes into the electron clouds that have been described by mainstream. Absolutely, to me, mind-boggling great work. But then I asked, Jeff, well, what's a magnetic field? He doesn't say. So even there, again, we're substituting one, how do you say, one model for another, to put it bluntly, one arbitrary model for another, even if it works better. But do we need to think outside the box? Jeff Yee is very close to that. But anyways, mathematics. We have the real number system in mainstream and dissonance. We use it all the time. We use the negative square root of -1, even in equations, empirical equations for electrical engineering, I believe. And there are great problems with it. And two people thinking absolutely outside the box, who I love. I've got my degree in mathematics, as you saw in the beginning, in my faux biography there. I'm just kidding. But, anyways, I love math, even though I hate it in physics because the mathematics screws up with physics. It doesn't work too well together. And we have two people who thought a lot outside the box completely. Peter Erickson in the darn it, what's it called? The something system. I'm gonna have to look that up. Maybe somebody can. He's going to kill me, but I love his work. The veritable number system. That's it. So Peter Erickson corrects many of the real number system problems in what he calls the veritable number system, where the square root of, anyways, I think I gave a talk on that. So, or look it up. I'm sorry. Again, I've been putting all these things together. I'm trying to remember all these things. But then there's Jack Kirkendall, which is symmetry math. And he gave, if you haven't looked at, look up Jack Kuykendall and take a look at it. We had him present. Absolutely love his work. He's changes everything into a physics system, which are basically sort of like vectors, and so you never have the problem with square root of -1 because in the universe, just think about it, folks. People say, "Oh, this is beyond me. How I can't think of. Give me something easy, Dave." It says basically there are no negative things in the universe. Go find me -$3 somewhere. Can't. The physical universe does not have negative numbers. It has more or less of stuff. It moves around in absolutely useful and interesting ways, but there are no negative numbers in the physical universe. Yeah, and that means when you have a sine wave, which we use for everything in physics, and it goes into the negative number range, it doesn't. It doesn't. If you have a signal coming across the wire and it goes from nothing to something, or it's going back and forth, AC, it's AC, right? The electrons go one way, the electrons go another, using the standard model terminology, and it's not negative. It's not going in a negative direction. It's moving one way and moving another way. There are no negative numbers, so that's really what I'm talking about here. And Peter Erickson, if you have not read him, Infinitesimals, I believe it is, and the square. I got his books. I got all their books back here somewhere. Do I have? Don't. Again, I was supposed to have all these books on my desk to show you, but I've got a regular job like a lot of people, and I don't have as much time. We need a billionaire to fund all this, then we can do things. So what we have, if we look at dissonance, we really have a couple of personality types. We have people working exclusively for themselves. And again, this is no criticism. Okay, this is no criticism. I'm the biggest fan of everyone. I love people's systems. I am a computer scientist. I'm not a detailed write the code stuff. I love coming up with systems. And I love to see new models of the universe. The more different, the more diverse and different, the better. So this is if you're working exclusively to yourself, no problem. That's the way it goes. Well, who are those people? Well, seniors, 70 years and older. We have a lot of people in our group that are older. They're retired. They can do what they want. They are not being censored or you can't do this. Like our colleague that passed away a while ago, Dr. Edward Dowdy, who was from NASA. You can't go around NASA saying, guess what, folks, general relativity is wrong. And so a lot of these people are retired, so that's when they can do what they want. They don't have to put food on the table. They're not going to lose their job if they say Einstein's wrong or the Big Bang's wrong, or if they have a crazy new idea of the way the universe works, which is great. Many of these people working on exclusively, they're not only seniors, but they have their own theory. And so what they've done is they've come up with their world, the way their universe works, with some start of a model. This is the way it works, and I am going to continue working on that. This is a free universe, folks, free thinking. You do what you want. But these are people who work exclusive for themselves. And a lot of people, it's just limited time. Even with seniors, it's limited time. You want to spend your time with what is going to be interesting to you. And in coming up with new ideas, being part of that 3% is really, really important. It's really, I think, it's very exciting. I know when my dad and I were working on our book and our new model of the universe, which we never ever thought we would ever come up with. It just sort of happened, putting things together. We had more fun in the first year and a half than we've ever had scientifically, ever. I mean, I look back, we were wrong about a lot of stuff, our own stuff, but was it fun? Yeah. So it's very entertaining. It's very stimulating to our brains. But we're going to talk about what goes on and why this can be a detriment in some sense. If my dad is watching, Dad, can you get the vacuum cleaner to stop? Anyways, what we are also have is with their own theory, but look at other theories. Now this probably here, I'm going to get the pointer because I know I forgot that. This here is probably the smallest group on the planet. For some reason, people do not, if they have their own theory, don't look at other theories. Really, they don't. They'll look at them sort of cursively, but I've seen it. I mean, I know because when I ask people who have their own theories about somebody else's theories, they don't have, they don't. I am one of these people. I'm not better or worse. I am just one of these people. My dad and I have a theory. I didn't have a theory for the longest time. I still looked at all theories. People send me books. Probably, if it used to be Greg Volk, my dear, 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 dear dissident friend. People want to know where Greg Volk is. He's living his life. He spent way too much time on this, so he's here. He supports everything we're doing. He says hello. Maybe I'll even bring him on sometime. He has more dissident work. He's actually taking papers in his garage. He has boxes of dissident work in his garage, and he got some money somewhere and got his son to digitize this stuff. I mean, the guy's great, but he looks a lot at other theories too. I would say, and he has his own theory too. So I would say Greg and I may be the only people in this category that I would really put in this category. Other people give this lip service. They don't. And a lot of it has to do with this first part. I'm not criticizing, folks. I'm just telling it like it is. It's really rare for a person to come up with I think it's more of an engineering attitude. Oh, we've got this model. It's another model out there. But there, somebody could come up every time someone sends me a book, which I get a lot of books, I get a lot of papers, a lot of people send me through every type of social media email. They say, can you read my stuff? Because they know I'm open to reading stuff, but, I guess that's who I am. Then we do have enthusiasts with no theory or work of their own. And there are not as much in the CMPS, but we do have those kinds of people. But we do have it much more in the social media with the people here, like in YouTube and everywhere else that people watch these days. YouTube, the internet, on our website. They read articles on our websites, etc. So there are quite a few people. And we actually have Myers like Tao Lin, pretty well-known author. I mean, we'll talk about that when he's on. But when I found out he was actually watching these and liking this, like, whoa, people are watching. And I do know we do send out emails, almost 1,000 of them every week. For a lot of you get them. Again, if you haven't, go to naturalphilosophy.org and you can sign up. I think right there is like, for our newsletter, put your email in, you'll get it. But I do they try their best to tell me who reads them. There's some illustrious people reading our newsletter. So not in mainstream, but outside the mainstream, or people who are somewhat involved. Authors, people some names. Again, I won't name them. Alrighty. So we do have some, but not as many. So this group down here is way, way smaller. Okay. That's just a fact. Is it right or wrong? It's not right or wrong. So, hello. Okay. All right, here we go. Now we're going to take you who have a model, and I put this down there, and It is, unfortunately, some of our biggest problems as we humans do. So you've got a model in your head. Everybody does. So if you say, I don't have a model, you do. You subscribe to pieces of other people's models, or you buy all of mainstream stuff, or maybe it's electrical universe. You think the universe is more electrical, or maybe you believe that, yeah, I think ether's probably right, or whatever. But everybody has a model. And so you have your model here in the middle. And really a big component of it, of course, is explaining and looking at experimental and observational data. Your model already has to do this. And one of the things that the mainstream gets wrong about we dissidents, because are we critical thinkers, better to say that way, we people who are the 3% thinking outside the box that will eventually change science for the best, well, we look at the data. Many people think we just throw out experimental data, and that's what happens. So you have a model, or you say Einstein's wrong. You point to some kind of 3 experiments that show him wrong, and then people come back and they go, "Well, you just don't know the data. I mean, you can't explain." So if you have a better idea, how are you going to explain this? I got that when my dad and I were presenting our model. Somebody comes and says, "Explain this." So yeah, we need to explain it. And in your model, you look at certain experimental data. Problem is we, as human nature will do, we'll look at some experimental data. You've got your idea. Oh, I've looked at this experimentally. Come up in your mind with some kind of way that could work. And then you get fixated on that data. Give you a perfect example of that. Michelson and Morley. We get so fixated on that. That we spend all of our time with all of our equations and all of our trying to explain how Michelson-Morley really didn't see the ether, and the ether's really there, and all that, without looking at the bigger picture. Because if you have ether, you also inherit all these problems, but you don't look at all those problems. I should put a box in with the problems, huh? You sort of ignore those problems. Yeah, here we go. Dave Hilster on his whiteboard. Whoops. Here we go. I'm going to copy this. Come on. I'm going to copy this and this. Copy, paste. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to put in here problems. Ignored problems. Alrighty. Put that here. And I'm going to put this arrow here. I'm going to draw an arrow. Like this. And I'm going to make this one big. People are going to be mad at me, but I'm going to make it big. Shape, outline, forms. Weight, 6. There we go. It should be bigger than that, though. I'm going to take this out and put it even bigger. Copy this guy. Need to move this over. Look at this. I'm doing like graphics on the fly. There we go. There. Voila. Saved. Slideshow from current fly. Dave D. Hilster's Blackboard. So yeah. The other thing is we get all these ignored problems, which we really ignore. We just ignore them. We say, Michelson-Morley, there is an ether. Then you assume, let me get my pointer back. Then you assume all these problems that you ignore all these problems. You cherry pick some of them and you ignore others. Everybody, our model, everybody's model. So the Michelson-Morley is just a good example of this. And then of course you have your own ideas, which is really your biggest input. And the smallest, most minute input for the average person who has a model, which is, 97% of people who have models. Of course, they don't look at other people's work and models. They just don't. And it is astounding. And that's the biggest thing that I don't understand. Because when I didn't have a model, I would look at all the models and I'd collect those people's work that I thought were great. Borcher's Infinity, Yonel Deneu's Underwater Experiments, Jeff Yee's physical explanation of how why electrons orbit the way they do. Um, uh, Anyways, just hold on. I'll be right back for a second. Sorry about that, folks. I'm back. Anyways, so we need to look at it more, folks. We just need to. Um, we get into trouble with that. Well, I'm going to talk about that. But again, this is the idea. Let's just summarize it. You have your model. There's experimental data that you want to explain. You want to give physicality to light. That's probably one of the biggest things we all think about. Maybe gravity. Most people think of light because light's much more interesting. So you do that, and then you say, okay, I've got my own ideas. Well, I've got the ether, so I'm going to make gravity into it. This is a very common thing that happens with people. There's all these ignored problems with, ether that are there, but people don't want to answer. They go, it doesn't matter. We'll answer those later. It's like, no, those objections will keep people from even looking at ether at all. And then you look at other people's work. Did someone solve something? Did someone point out something that I should know? What are other people doing in their model? So, anyways, what to do? Find those. Here's some ideas that I had, and it's going to be a little bit funky here because I didn't go through them because I've been putting these together in the last couple of days here. Find those truly interested in looking into other models and theories and evaluating them in a logic way. That would be very good. Develop a metric to classify and rate physical versus symbolic, physicality versus symbolic. Look at things like light, gravity, magnetism, electricity, levels of the universe, the entire universe, whatever. That is something I think we could perhaps do. But just to remember, I'm now going to look at some ideas that I've tried to put together. But you are a critical thinker. That's the most important part. This is the most important part. You are in this little box of 3%. You're here. You realize that that the majority is wrong, and that 3% of us who are brave enough to go out there and try something new, we're the ones. That's the thing that makes things change. When somebody and something hits in this 3%, that's where it's going to come from. It's not going to come from here. So the majority we know is wrong because we're only making ourselves less wrong, is basically what we would do. There is no proven perfect theory. We just make a model of the universe that's less wrong than the one before it. So here is something I'm putting together here of people I know in a categorization I know. The only difference I would do here, and I'm going to change this here, is this, oops, here we go. I'm going to change these letters, oops, this A to a U for the universe. Oh, that's no fun. This A to a U for the universe. I'm going to change this A to U for the universe. Why they have to do this? Okay. Alrighty. I'm going to change this A to the universe. But that's atoms. I'm going to leave that there. All right. And I'm going to call this the universe, the entire universe. The atoms could be another one too, but I wanted to do this one instead. So basically what we have here is classifying theories and models. We have the Newtonian world, what I call a symbolic mathematical world. We have light, gravity, magnetism, electricity, the universe in its whole. I need to get back here. This is wrong now too. I'm going to copy this guy here. And this is Format Painter. Good. There we go, because Borker does talk about that. So again, the idea here is to sort of categorize. So what does this show? It shows light, gravity, magnetism, electricity, and the universe. What am I doing? Okay. I'm sorry. All right, I'm going to do one more here. This is actually going to be just a regular one. Copy, home, format painter. Okay, there we go. Now, the idea here is to come up with kind of system that we can look at stuff. So here we have Yonel Denou, light and gravity. He, I'm sure, thinks that gravity is part. I'm pretty sure from him, he thinks that gravity is a part of ether. Magnetism, of course, he is the one, in my opinion, that he cracked the code for magnetism and electricity. He's actually working on it. If you've watched him and follow his YouTube channel, says there's a new element called electrogen, and that's what keeps ether waves inside of one of the problems with Borkert and Yonel Denou with ether is they claim that electricity is ether waves just contained in a wire. And of course, how do you contain it in a wire? That's really, really hard. So Yonel Denou's trying to come up with an electrogen kind of model. He's got some pretty complicated stuff going on there. He says it's an element of the periodic table. He doesn't talk about the whole levels of the universe. I would say because of that, he's got maybe 80% of the universe described. Jeff Yee, for instance, is in the physical world, but he does have mathematical things, and that's the case of magnetism and stuff. Why doesn't he look at Yonel Denou? I don't know, but he hasn't. But he has light is described, gravity is described, magnetism he doesn't look at. E for electricity. I think maybe he just talks about mainstream stuff with that, so I didn't put that there. And of course, his atomic world, I left the A there because his atomic world is absolutely amazing. I think it's great work. Bill Lucas has really amazing work. He's got the force equations for the whole universe. He would argue that he's described the whole universe, but I put him in the symbolic mathematical, even though he has toroids, I think, for his electrons. I've not heard exactly the explanation for that, so I don't call this really a physical model as much. And this is the physicality of the universe, how much of the universe he's covering. Yonel Denou's got 80% of that. Jeff Yee has 80% of it because he doesn't talk about magnetism. Bill Lucas has some things for sort of electrons. And then Borkert, of course, he has light because he is an etherist. He has gravity. He says gravity is because of you have more ether when it's close. Ether density is bigger around bodies. Magnetism, he says Yonel Denou, but he does not implement it. So I don't give him lip service. I don't say he does have it because he's only said, oh yeah, that's the way it works. But again, show me, because if you have ether swirling, how do light would be bending in magnetic fields with that kind of model, even with Yonel Denou and Borkert. They're going to have to explain that. Electricity, he also says it's contained in it, but he doesn't say how, so I don't give him that. And of course, the universe, the entire universe from infinitely up and infinitely down is none. Then we have, we do have light and gravity and magnetism and electricity and the entire universe because we build upon these guys. So Jeff Yee does not build upon Yonel Denou's magnetism work. Bill Lucas doesn't. So these guys are not really building on anything. They're building really on mainstream or ideas, these guys. Borkert does say Yonel Denou's right about magnetism. I didn't put it there because he really hasn't described it. So Yonel Denou is there. I don't know if he's a Borkert person or not, infinitely up. And then, of course, the reason I put us above all these, it's not because they're better. It's just to say we're building blocks. So Borkert builds on the idea of Yonel Denou, although he has no explanation there. We build on the idea of Borkert and Yonel Denou and Jeff Yee. So we do look at all those guys. And is it better or worse? This is not a... This is not to say what's better. At the top is not what's better. This is a diagram to show explanation of a physical world. And you notice that a couple other things. Yonel Denou, Borkert, and de Hilster, we all believe it's a Newtonian world. Jeff Yee believes it's a Newtonian world, but he hasn't gotten everything described on that. That's why. And Bill Lucas, I think, would argue that it isn't Newtonian, that the force equations, Newton's part of a bigger thing, which isn't Newtonian. So again, this is just a way to kind of look at things and categorize some of the ones I know. Yes, you all have your diagram and mine would be this and yours would be that. That's cool. But this is sort of give you an idea of how we can sort of look at different kinds of theories in different kinds of ways in this box world that we had in the beginning with our video that famously aborted us. So Jean de Clément, and I don't speak French, so he literally has a list called the Worldwide List of Dissident Scientists, Critics, and Alternative Theories. And this is the latest version, I guess, is June 2006. I believe he went and edited it and made it sort of, I did calculations between 1,000 and 2,000 because the actual document has like 500 pages, but I did some rough calculations. But other lists, I found this from 2017, a person who wrote about his list, and he said around the world, and he finds 8,000 of them, compiled 40 lists of dissident science from around the world, and there's 8,000. I did see that list at one time. I can't find it because all these links in this particular article are sort of broken, so I can't see them. So I went to try to get those and try to take a look at them. You can take a look at them. These, if you just look up Jean de Clément and Worldwide Dissident Scientists, you'll get the PDF file, which you can download of 500 pages, which I did. And I'm gonna take a look at that. I think I'm going to show you guys. And so dissidents, these are only dissidents born after 1905. And of course, anybody who knows physics knows what 1905 is, and that's relativity. So it's a very detailed categorization. Of course, it's a list. It's a list of other lists, a list with, and it has other lists that they had compiled there. In fact, let me get out of this and take a look. No, I'm not going to do that today because we're already 11:15 and I want to have discussion. So I won't get that. Take a look at it yourself. I saw Roger Anderton. I don't know if you're here today. I saw you in there. And so again, he has maybe I calculated just by statistically, I calculated about 1,200, 1,300 people he has in there, pretty detailed. Of course, though, he has from my movie, he's got my mom in there, my brother in there, who are really not dissident scientists, even though they sort of became one, but they're not really very actively involved. So it's a hit and miss kind of thing on that side, but the bigger list had everybody. What if they came? That is, what if the world comes to us right now? Let's say we'd get our druthers and the universities would come to us and say, okay, folks, we realize the standard model really is bad. Let's see, what do you got? What do you see? How would they evaluate us? Would they see chaos? Would they see no model has any supporters outside the authors themselves? There were two Finnish attendees in the early 2000s in the math department at the University of Connecticut for the Natural Philosophy Alliance. They happened to be outside sort of by themselves. And I was kind of curious because I'm one of those people who are always worried about when people come, if they're not enjoying themselves. A lot of times scientists like ourselves are more kind of to ourselves. I'm sort of even autistic in some ways. We're sort of, those people who think outside the box, but a lot of times socially we're not. I had to learn it, all this social way. I lived in Brazil for 3 years, and that was my classroom in dealing with human beings. So, we're not always, we are big thinkers. We don't always are comfortable with social interaction. So I saw these two guys out there. So I went out there and I said, hey, how are you? Where are you from? Finland? Oh, that's great. You came to talk about something. I think it was about relativity. And I said, what's the matter? He goes, well, I came here to talk about my work so that other people would, be interested in also talk about it. And, all we have is we're all salesmen and there are no buyers. And that's exactly what this comes down to. That is, when we go to conferences and we have conferences, I talk about my work. I talk about my work. I talk about my work. You talk about your work. He talks about his work. And we stand around and then we say, are you interested in my stuff? Do you want to know more about it? Hey, help me out. I need help. I've got all this work to do. And everyone's saying the same thing. And then there's like, I remember there was, I'm not kidding. This is absolutely true. When we started the CMPS, we had our first, I think our first in-person conference was here at the Florida Atlantic University in 2015. And that's where I met Ray Gallucci, one of my favorite engineer guys and scientist guys, and other people. And it was funny because there was one or two people, maybe just one, that didn't have their own theory, and people would go up to that person and talk with them and try to sell them their theory. Not, and I'm not, this is nothing bad. This is normal human beings. But I've seen it before. We have conferences with 40, 50, 60 people. We've had conferences with 120 people in person. We had that at the University of Maryland in the mid 2000s, first decade of 2000s, or the early 2000 teens. And most everybody was there, had their own ideas, of course. And people, when they're talking, it's like, oh, no one's going to come and says, I think your stuff's great. Can I help you out? Can I work with you? This doesn't seem to happen. So I thought to myself, all right, we get to the part I promised. Here's what I'm going to say. What if we treated the CMPS like NASA or SpaceX? And the thing that I've said before over and over and over and over again is the people I admire most and the people who seem to have the best attitude, which is we're lucky, like my father says, we're lucky to cobble anything together that works at all. That's an engineering, ask NASA, ask SpaceX. You put your ideas together and you're crazy. I'm going to catch this rocket out of the sky. Are you nuts? SpaceX is thinking outside the box. They just changed. They changed in mid-course. Oh, we're going to make carbon fiber. Now they're making, things out of, stainless steel. Why? It's cheaper. They can do it faster. They don't have all that thing with NASA where they spend all kinds of stuff, pork, don't go anywhere. They're thinking outside the box. NASA is now using SpaceX because they think outside the box. But if we put people together and they came to this, okay, what do you guys got? What do we do? How do we do this? How do we treat this? Well, CMPS has no active group working together on the next model of the universe. So they come to us and say, okay, well, give me some of the things. I know you've got lots of different ideas and different models, but tell me what you think the next model is. It's like, we don't have one really. Well, who's looking at, who's keeping track of all this? Is it just, what is it? Just a bunch of people selling their ideas? What good is that? It'd be like going to SpaceX and finding their engineering group has 17 people with a solution to how to land and no one cooperates. That's what we have. Now, again, folks, I'm not saying those people who have their own theory are at fault. It doesn't matter. We as an organization, I'm the president of the organization. I'm the one to blame. Flog me, fire me. Yeah, fire me. Then I'll have more free time. But fire me. So what do we do? If we cooperated, what will we do? Identified problems with mainstream science. That we have down. Go look at beyondmainstream.org. Take a look at it. We've got so much. In relativity, we have over 2,000 books and papers that we already have identified problems. We've got the chief scientist who got her degree in special relativity, who applied it to her PhD from MIT. She applied it to a ring gyroscope and it failed. We got example after example. Light doesn't bend outside of Cronus' sun, and yet general relativity says it should. We've done that. We've done that. We need to identify our objectives as a group. Because when you're working on your own work, your objectives maybe is where your objectives are. But we as a group, if we are trying to be the next new model in science, or at least 3 good ones, what are our objectives? Is it physicality? Is it new predictions? Is it new models that don't have the problems that we know exist? What is it? What is it? We don't talk about it. We need to inventory everything we have, and we need to evaluate what we have. We need to find the strongest candidates and concepts. We got to find the weakest and most obvious missing links. We need to work together and come up with a new model or work on promising ones together. That is really hard. I mean, I can only name 2 people, honestly, who have their own models that actually look at other models. See, here we go. Here we go. Here it is. Super Principia Mathematica, because I know he likes me so much. You are to blame for the fact the organization is growing. Okay, so Super Principia Mathematica, I have proof, statistical proof that our organization is growing. So I don't know what you're saying. We have our number of memberships is growing. Our number of paid memberships is growing. So there you go. You have biased ideas that you place on others. Okay. Again, I'd like to know what that is, because I have people on here, when they come with their model, I ask them questions. I admire everybody's models. I say that my father and I's model is just another model. So where does this come from? I don't know. I think this comes from personal something, I guess. But if that's the case, seriously, I have no problem of leaving. I mean, if that's the case, I have no problem of leaving. So anyways, let's see. Here we go. Forward we go. All right, solution. Here's my idea. We're going to ask members to pair up with you can tell this is like I just put this together, folks, literally on the way. It's like to pair up. Oops. I keep to pair up. Let's just do that. To join up. How's that? Okay. Alrighty. From my biased opinion that only puts stuff from, yeah, it's funny. Yeah. Hey, the good thing about a person who's a critical thinker, I consider myself at least a critical thinker, is you can look at something, a critique, and either believe it or not, or investigate it or not. And again, people throw out a lot of evidence or words on everything, from theories, science, poetry, to everything, and you got to look at it. So, anyways, doesn't affect me at all. Let's see. Here we go. Solution. I think this is a great idea. Ask members to join up. Identify those working on new models who want help. Seriously, there's some people who don't, and that has to be respected. And we can create model teams. Encourage other CMPS members to join a model team. Do we make a model team with Ether? And those people want to try to solve the problems with Ether. Yeah, that model team's going. I'll be on it just to give you the problems. You got to solve them. We've been in Ether for 400 years, and no one's buying it still. As much as we say we buy it, and as much as we say we have to see that, but we have to. Yeah, maybe that's one of them. If Ether's that important to people, then let's get together and look at the problems and really fix them. That's what we used to do a lot in the MPA. I mean, every time somebody got up in front of, and we're talking from 1996, which I started with them, through 2007, 2008, so 10 years span. Dr. Ebely Spencer, MIT, mathematics PhD from MIT. Every time somebody got up and spoke about Ether, she would say, I don't need Ether to describe the universe. And so I loved her. She was really great. And so there was always that debate. So if that's something we think in our group that we really need to discuss, let's stop trying to describe Michelson and Morley and deal with the objections that I have and other people have. Because if you don't do that, we're going to stay as Ether has for 400 years as a non-viable model for light. And so that's one thing we could do. Creative model team. If Jeff Yee's model is really great and we think that's really good, join up. And you think that's really good, join up with them. Try to help with them. Um, another group, the Infinite Universe Theory by Glenn Borkert. He has ether in the form of galaxies, sort of, he says, and that gives him that the particles can do this instead of just hitting. And he says that's what he thinks ether is. He's got the infinite universe up and down. He believes it's electricity. How do you get that? You know, that you can be joining up with him. Yonel Deneau is working. You could also be a person that could help Yonel Deneau. He is an etherist. Um, see, there we go. Hey, super mathematic principle. I'm talking about ether and telling people, encouraging them to work together. So how am I doing that when I don't think ether is correct? Okay, because it could be correct. It could be. I don't think so, but convince me otherwise. Anyways, that could be something. So, Nell Deneau needs work. Anyways, I think I've gone on about this a lot. I think we need to look at this organization. We have to, I think the first stage and the first part of this organization was to get everyone together, everyone to just a place for you to be. I mean, we just didn't have a place to write our papers. We didn't have a place to come and do what we do here. We didn't have a place for Eric Reeder to come and, say, hey, quantum mechanics, it's got all these problems. Light has both wave and particle properties. If you can't do something with that, then you're wrong. We have James Maxwell, who says the Earth's expanding, and we have geological evidence that it's not only expanding, but it is growing in mass. And he came to our group, says, I need help. Did we help him? No, he had to go on his own. We had people talk about it, but we didn't really sit and cooperate there. We have so all kinds of people, and thinking outside the box, and really, we have been supporting that. So we've done that. Our group has successfully, for almost 3 decades, given a platform, a forum. I've got big books back here of lots of published stuff. Right there are some books from, I think down here as well, are books from the proceedings. We've got proceedings, that huge proceedings. We're giving people voices. The question is now, what do we do? What's the next step? If someone comes to our group and says, what do you basically believe? Well, the majority of our people believe in ether. And then they'll come back and says, okay, ether was disproven because of this, this, and this. And are there any other ideas as well? That's one thing they can say. We can come back with them. Do we have an answer? If they come with the basic arguments against ether, do we have an answer for that? Do we have a model that really works? We have ether, we have magnetic, we have all these kinds of things. So what do we do? How do we do it? Can we do it? Is this a pipe dream? Should I just pass the presidency on to someone else and then I can have my Saturdays to work with my dad on our model, which is, like I've said, our model, I tell everybody, it's the only and best model. Everybody else's stuff is terrible. There, take that soundbite now and then put it on your website, and there you go. I just said it. So not true. Okay, let's go to people in our green room. If you want to come up, if you want to join us, I hope this has been stimulating. Oh, Ian's waving his hand, but this time I'm going to refuse to talk with him because I saw that Ireland actually sent a delegation to the Winter Olympics, and I'm trying to figure out how that can be. So until, I'm just kidding. I'll bring him up. And if you have questions or comments, please put a question or comment and I'll bring you up. So hello, Ian, how are you?
Hello, David. Very well, thank you.
Oh, you see our background now? I don't know if you see it now. We're now in the night sky here.
Yes, well, the days are stretching a little now into February, but it gets dark about before 5, let's say,
Oh my goodness. Oh my
5,
goodness.
5 p.m. It's 20 to 5 or 25 to 5 now.
Oh my gosh.
So,
So,
yeah.
anyways, what do you think about all this stuff?
Well, yeah, a few comments. I'll not comment on the sports thing because I'm not really much of a sportsman. I didn't know what you were referring to, but um,
Winter Olympics.
the Winter Olympics. Yeah,
Yes, because
I know you're having
I
on the
don't
east
think that
coast of the United
Ireland
States. You're
is.
having a real
Yeah.
winter. We
Yes.
actually are having quite mild winter. I mean, it's Hibernia, the land of winter. 11 months of winter, but we never get very extreme weather. The last very bad winter we had, I think, was about 10 years ago. Um, so it's long and damp and chilly and uncomfortable, but it's not cold. I mean, it's it's sort of, I don't know what it is. It's about 6 degrees or something Celsius at
Right.
the moment out there. Yeah, a few comments, David. Very interesting that this concept of the majority being always wrong. I think it perhaps comes from Ibsen and Bernard Shaw, who both said this. One of them said, "And the minority is normal is frequently wrong," and the other said, "And the minority is sometimes right." I think it's a little hyperbole, by the way, because I would say that the majority is often wrong. Maybe more frequently than not, and perhaps there's no surprise at that because majority views are normally founded in an unthinking way, in an uncritical way, as you yourself have said. Um, something just becomes the norm, and the mass of people don't analyze it, and they just accept it, and they say, well, that's a consensus. And the consensus, of course, doesn't indicate what is right. It merely indicates what society at a particular time believes to be true, and they are not the same things. So now, I also posed another problem, which could be a little disquieting. Uh, does that also apply to a body such as the CNPS or to critical thinkers? I mean, one might argue that being critical thinkers, that applies to a lesser degree, and therefore, you know, we wouldn't say that the majority is normally wrong and we're just accepting things. However, being human, one might tend to think that the majority view in the CNPS or other critical groups is also subject to being wrong very frequently. Uh, that might, in passing, give you a little solace because you said earlier that the majority of us would be etherists, and
Right. Right.
therefore, if I'm right, perhaps that doesn't show that it's a correct theory, and maybe it's wrong. So I had one other point I wanted to give, just slipped my mind now. It was to do with it'll come back to me in a second. I'm sorry, but
Yeah. No. No
oh
problem.
yes, I know what it was now. I've
Okay.
got it.
Good. Good. Good.
Because
Good. Good. Good.
you'd referred to the Michelson Morley, and if you permit me just for a second to come back to that, because it's a little disquieting. Like I and others, we've developed some explanations, if you like, of the results of Michelson Morley type experiments, which would be at variance maybe with the special relativistic explanation. But what is a bit disquieting is that I've studied many dissident explanations of that, which are quite contrary to each other. I mean, for example, J.P. Wesley has an interesting explanation based on a cancellation owing to Doppler effects. And he says that the Michelson-Morley experiment should give a null result. Another would be Paul Marmot, who does the same on because of cancellation of effects because of bouncing of rays off moving mirrors. Now, I believe both of those to be incorrect explanations, and I've seen many others. But an outsider might infer that we'd already made up our minds that the special relativistic explanation of the so-called null result of the Michelson-Morley experiment was incorrect, and therefore we'd gone out of our ways to find other explanations instead of starting ab initio and saying is our SRT right, is it wrong, so it's just a slightly disquieting concept as to whether, if we are being honest with ourselves, we can put our hands on our hearts and say that we are not also subject to a slight groupthink, which is really what we see by and large in the world, with all the major problems and hysteria coming from that. I mean, maybe you could start talking about pandemics or global warming or all these things, which are they might start with an analysis, but they become groupthink, they become the majoritarian view which you dare not dissent from, and then they become hysteria and actually persecution of minorities who disagree with
Sure,
that. So
sure.
those are just some views which I think one might put into the mix. I don't know if they answer the fundamental questions that you were asking about how we go
No, no.
forward, but I
Yeah.
think they're
No, but
something
I think
there, David.
here's something I think would be interesting since you're up here talking, is that I gave a talk about whether relativity is relevant, right? I mean, this is an interesting point. Look at what I would consider. I mean, I've got people saying that I only talk about. I'm biased in which people I talk about. I talk about the theories that people are working on today, because there's a lot of books I have behind me, but people are actively working on theories today, things that I see in common with them. Okay. And if I look at the people who are active today, not 10 years ago, not 100 years ago, not 50 years ago, not the books behind me of people that even have passed on and all that, but what today's people, the people who are really trying, struggling, there's very similar things going on, like no charge. There's things similar that they're all Newtonian. There are things similar that one other is relativity doesn't even come into, it's not even a discussion point. Is it the case that our answer to relativity is that it is a curious mathematical coordinate system of observation that in the end has nothing to do with the physicality of the universe?
Yes, that could be one way of looking at it. And actually, we had the quantum exposition, was it last week? And
Yeah.
that gave me some thought as well along similar lines, which maybe we haven't concentrated on as much. I mean, like the quantum idea, maybe Planck's idea. I think even Planck himself at the very beginning, he said, well, this appears to work, but there may not be a physicality to it, this sort of quantum of energies being transmitted. It was really a theory in order to get a proper equation for black body radiation, which would obviate things like the ultraviolet catastrophe. And he got this lovely equation with exponential terms and so on. But it was based on this quantum transition. And this has become, accepted now as an absolute and something which has a one-to-one correspondence with reality. So we're aware of this, and we've been dealing with it very much. And I've dealt with it maybe mostly in my career as a dissident in regard to the relativistic ideas, and that's well taken. But maybe it also applies to the other major physical theory which is accepted by established science today, namely the quantum theory.
Yeah, I think one of the things we don't talk about in our group is, are we pursuing, are we putting mental energy into things that aren't going to in the end be part of our goal? What is that goal? I mean, for instance, if you look at the newer theories, not the Dave D. Hilster's bias, I like these theories. That's when I've got those comments in the comments. But the newer theories, again, active theories out there, people I see working on them now who are putting that out there. There's a lot of things they're just not caring about that we have spent eons of time talking about. Moving charges, do they create fields? I think we need to step back, just like the guy in the video in the beginning. We've got to step back and say, the question isn't necessarily what's the answer. Is that even a question? Right? I think we need to look at those. So, anyways, thank you so much. We did have this
Sounds
comment
very,
here. I
yeah,
just want to,
very stimulating anyway.
yes, I want to put this. I want to read this to you. It says, if I were going to be on a team that was going to fight, Ian, I would choose you. Your accent and demeanor would make me laugh the entire time you were telling me I was wrong and stupid.
Yeah, it was something that I've given a little thought to, because I've had one or two comments like that, and it reminds me that I used to do some video calls when I was working, and we had one lady from California, and she said to me that her daughter, her young daughter, said, "That man has a funny accent. He should be on the stage." So I'm just wondering if
Well, you know what I'm thinking about now, because I look at my videos, I'm okay. I'm not great. I just do it because I have to. But if I were to pick a spokesman for us to make some really videos about our group and come up with things that would be more mainstream and we get some money and do this, I definitely put you up there. You have what we call an Hollywood it. Well, that it is something that's attractive to a person to watch and listen to. You can't describe it because that's what it is. It's it. It's undescribable. I mean, my daughter has been told that she has it for musical theater. Of course, if you try to describe it, you can't. But yeah, I definitely could see casting you in our videos. So thank you very much, Ian, for coming on and people's comments. It's always great to talk with him. Anybody else in the green room? I see James Keene there, also available. I do read. If you want to come on, folks, we do have 15 minutes left. You can come on. The way you do it is you go to live.naturalphilosophy.org. You can log in. You just put that in your browser, and this is a browser-based system. The browsers, for people who don't know that these days, actually has built-in webcam and video kinds of interaction, the web browsers of today. And because of that, that's the way it works. So you don't need to download anything. You can just go to live.naturalphilosophy.org. You will get into the green room, and I can bring you up, and you can tell me how I am biased and how I am destroying our organization. So I have no problem with that. Anyways, I will look at some of the more of the comments we have down here. Let's see, a photon is melted in additional effects experiments. Let's see. Here's a person that says, a photon is a multi-dimensional effect. You can't do a three-dimensional experiment to explain a two-dimensional phenomenon. The photon acquires mass and moves through the... Okay. Interesting stuff. I'm not sure how much this is. I think this is just part of the discussions below. What we would say, people have been in this for a while, is that two dimensions is a mathematical thing. It's not a physical thing. We have, that's what I would say to you. Multidimensional. There are many of us say there's, the physical world, if you can show me a fourth dimension, great. Time is not a fourth dimension. It is, we can treat it in a mathematical system, but physically, one person puts it as motion. But in a physical world, time is concept. But I have a person, Bob Gray, who I always know is one of those people who can talk and has interesting things to say. Bob, how are you?
Hi, David. Thanks so much for the presentation topic. On my mind is maybe the organization shouldn't be trying to solve problems. I think what you're doing in the organization is fantastic, to get people together, to make people aware of other people's work.
Right.
And if the organization does nothing else, that's a big service. So I'm not sure about trying to get people together. Let's try to match people up and everybody work on somebody else's. Okay, but I think the organization just trying to have, as you say at the beginning of all these, a place where people can, present their model, to make it available to other people, to expand people's, I didn't know, about this quantum problem from last week, or that, from these other presentations. So in that sense, I think the organization is perfect the way it is. I'm not sure about trying to, come on guys, we got to solve a problem. We got to present ourselves as the problem solvers. Come to us because somebody here has an answer. I'm
Right.
not sure that.
I understand. I understand.
So
I think that's a
just
valid
just
point.
a thought.
Yeah, a valid point. Here's a couple of things. Number one of the biggest complaints I get, and I've heard for 20 years, is that no one's listening to me. They come on, right? They present, and they go, "Well, what happened? No one's contacted me." It's interesting. I watched Eric Reader's stuff, but who cares? Good luck, Eric. Do your stuff. Um, and unfortunately, then you have the problem of the motivation of why people won't come on. I've literally had, and I won't name them because I don't want to put them in the spot, people I admire who I think are going to be go down in history tell me they don't want to come on because there's not enough people watching.
Mm,
And that is something we have to deal with in reality. The other thing is
right.
too, if you were to look at, I don't know if you know how much of history of science you've looked at, but it used to be that the people, if you see these photos with Einstein, Pauli, and all these people, they didn't come together, just say hello and go away. People were on boards. They were bashing it out. I mean, they were communicating. They were working on some commonality there. And there
Yeah.
has been in mainstream. Our group doesn't do that.
Mm,
And if as much as we want to say, and I think it's great we're giving people a voice, but as much as we want to say, what we could end up being is a fringe thing that happened that people gave ideas to. Nothing really came out of it because we never could get together and say, look, Fred, you've got this one great idea, but this other stuff doesn't work. But we're going to take this one, and this is great. Let's move on. Because people need to do that themselves.
mm.
And so I understand what you're saying. But the idea that this is the place where the next Copernicus is going to be, the next Newton's going to be, is it going to be sort of left up to chance? Or did the stuff is the mainstream science today that the way they work is working right or wrong because they're working in teams? They're together, they have some kind of goal. I guess I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I'm not
You
sure
know,
that they're working in teams. In some areas of physics, I suppose, um, but a lot of papers that I see, they may have three, four, five authors on the papers, and I chase that down, and I find that the it's the professor and two or three of his graduate students. Now, graduate students to me is almost like slave labor. And
sure,
it's, yeah, you have to do what the professor says and blah blah. I was in a group for my PhD, which had over 8 graduate students, and you
hmm
had to produce a paper every year. And that
hmm
means the professor was publishing at least 8 papers a year. And it's like, wow. And you do it because it's not necessarily because you're in love with the topic. You do it because that's what's required in order to get you through the PhD program. And so the incentive here, um, I guess what I'm saying is different. And when I go to work, part of the incentive is being paid for my time. I'd love to be at home working on my
hmm
theories and my things, but I can't. I have to go and quote unquote earn a living.
sure.
Um, and so the motivation when I see in physics and the sciences for groups is not just because they're all on the same page and they're all trying to accomplish the same thing.
But
Um,
let me just say this. When you go to a physics class, Physics 101, or maybe more advanced physics classes in any university on the globe, you're going to get a pretty consistent answer. Now that's what I'm talking about because that exists. And as much as we say that people themselves don't work, something's happening. There's something there. Now, if that is the case, we know what the problems are. We're not exhibiting necessarily, what are the major trends? Maybe the first thing we need to do is have a place where we have major trends and what people are thinking. And those I don't know what it is, but that's what I'm saying. Let's say that for some reason something comes along. A Big Bang is a good example. They're coming up more and more with when they get these telescopes. There's another telescope going out, and
Yeah, the
the
James Webb.
right in Tao Lin, who's fairly a pretty famous person. He wrote an article about that because when he saw that, it was like, hey, this is real evidence that it's going to just blow the Big Bang out of the water. When that happens, people are going to come our direction. What we're going to end up doing is having that slide I said with 1,000 people coming at them, and an organization says, "Well, good luck. Here's a page. Go click on it." What
But my
what what?
question to you would be, why would the people come to the organization other than to look up somebody that works in that area that has an alternative
Okay, here's
theory?
what happened.
And so they go to that person, not through this
It's
organization.
called social media. Here's what happens. When you go today, the person's on their phone. The person today, the human being, has of all of human knowledge in their hand, all of it. So when they look up, problems with the Big Bang, if you look up problems with special relativity, if you look problems with plate tectonics, those kinds of things, we come up. We're there. You can do it. I mean, it's not a coincidence that when you Google stuff, you get stuff from our websites. We've been around a while. That's been the
Mhm.
objective. So people will come our way and do. Again, this person Tao Lin came our way. He watches our videos. I mean, I was shocked when I found out who he was. It's like he likes this and he liked the talk by Eric Reed. Yes, they do. Today
Mhm.
and age, they come, they will. And so if they do, they're going to say, well, what do you guys say about it? Well, it's wrong, and here's a bunch of links and stuff. No, we as an organization should at least keep track of sort of the trends that are happening, other than just go to our website, join in a discussion. What
I
do
think the
and
organization then needs to be bigger and with paid employees to help organize, help you organize and
Oh,
say, these are the problems. This is
don't
about,
ever say this because okay,
okay.
I'm the president and I have just nominated Bob Gray on the committee to go out and corral a billionaire, and let's just say we'll take 10 million to start with. We'll give them a business plan of what we want to do, and I will be absolutely happy within 2 weeks to have a business plan of how to do exactly that. And I'm not kidding. So
Yeah,
do you
yeah.
have anybody Bob?
No comment. So,
Oh, okay.
no
We'll
comment.
be talking
So,
offline. So, but no,
uh,
I understand what you're saying. I'm not here to argue with anything you're saying. I think the good thing to me is that you're saying that we do a big service, and that's
oh,
true. But,
fantastic. Yeah.
but as things fall, we gotta be ready. We gotta be ready. And I don't
And,
want to be in a place where they come by us and then leave, because
and to be ready, I say it's going to be more, take more than you. It's going to
oh yeah,
take more people to organize the information so that when somebody knocks on the door, here's an organized information packet on that topic. I mean,
right.
it just takes
We
people time, and without the, incentive, I'm not sure it's going to happen.
Well, we did start something, and that site is beyondmainstream.org. I think we're coming up to 100,000 views soon. And yeah, that's not a whole lot, but it is there. If you say to go to beyondmainstream.org, it tells you what the problems are, who's working on it. The thing it doesn't do, we don't have there, are sort of meta visions of what we have. We don't have the Jean Clement sort of here's a list of them, but we need more than that. And yeah, can we do it? Yeah. We have a volunteer organization. We have a lot of people interested. Some people don't have their own theory. Maybe they'd be interested in helping out with that and having a committee. We have this platform we can use, and get people together and talk about it. So
Yeah.
I think that's something that's
All right.
possible.
Thanks,
Thank you
Dave.
so much, Bob. Bob always has great input. So I think that's about it. I know James there in the Keen. I don't know if he wants to say anything. Did you want to say anything, or you're good for today? You do? Okay, I think he does. Hey,
Let
James.
me unmute Hello, hi everybody. There's not much time left, so I'd like to just briefly say that I think we have to emphasize merit, and this is what I like to do. And I'm writing papers and trying to quote other people's work, like for the work of Dmitriev in the Soviet in Russia, for example. And I have one coming up for. As a matter of fact, almost everybody's work here should be reviewed in terms of its theoretical implications. Now, when I mention merit, you talk about having groups. Uh, the merit of a particular theory will attract people over time um, by the stock market idea of fear of missing out. In
Hmm.
other words, like let's say when the electron particle was first discovered, quote unquote, it attracted a whole lot of people to work on that subject of particle
Hmm.
physics, the electron, what are its properties, and so forth. So
Hmm.
to steal from stock market terminology, the fear of missing out, people will come if a theory has merit. The second thing is Tina. There is no other alternative. Again, another stock market phrase. uh, as uh, as I'm suggesting that people here quote more other people's work in their own work on their own websites, and that might attract people to their own work. If you get my drift, and I'll be
Hmm.
quiet because the time is up. Thank you.
Okay, no, no problem. Thank you. I know Stoyan Sarge is here. I don't know. Can you talk? Hey, Stoyan, how are you?
Yeah,
Good to
yeah.
see you. I'm
Okay,
s-
can you hear me?
yeah, we only
I'm
have like a minute or so, but we'd love to have you come in and talk sometime. Have you talked in our new format here?
yeah, I could talk, but
Yes, I think that you
yeah,
should do.
could I say a couple words now?
Absolutely. You got about 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay. Uh, you know, I have been working in among the scientists in official scientific institution for about 20 years, even more. And I know the situation that it is very difficult to promote something that is outside of the mainstream. Even to be a professor, I was just a scientist. I know professors that try little bit to be away. Right away, they are stopped from the government funding. That's I tried many things during these 20 years because I see the theory doesn't my theory doesn't have any fall, but arrived to the conclusion that without an institution, without a payment money, the people would not work. Many young people, students are interested, but the world is now so material, so dependent on the money that they could not devote their effort and times to do this. I don't know, is it possible this your organization that is so one of the first? I appreciate this organization and think it is the first and with a long time and you did so much efforts. Is it possible to make something like a GoFundMe that to attract some kind of money and then to establish the way that the official institutions are working?
Yeah, no, I've thought of that. When I did my documentary, I had to do it old fashioned. They didn't have gold med. I raised I think $85,000 for my documentary via the scientists themselves, though. I think on that is a viable idea, but I think we have to have very good goals in mind of what to do with it because what people will give money for is to have very clear goals as to what their money is getting them, not just sort of to organize or whatever. So yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
possible. If you have some ideas, two things. If you have ideas about what those goals could be for FundMe, contact me. Second of all, I'd love to have you talk because I love your work. And one thing you have to remember, a lot of new people, we have a lot of new people. Most of the people we get today haven't been here even 5 years ago, and they're from social media, they're out there. So I'd love to have you present. Is that something you can think about?
Yeah. Okay, I could think about, and
Okay.
I could send you some short things of
Yes.
my proposal
Okay.
um, to focus on some main problems, because many problems in the world today even
Yeah.
are results of a wrong understanding, even of the universe, even of the other
Sure.
situation, even
Sure.
the humanity.
Right. No, for sure. For sure.
One thing I could say that, according to current situation, the universe is thought to be about 20 billion years. But when you bring the concept of the ether, you'll see that universe is everlasting, not
Sure.
billions. You could not
Yeah, it's
know
eternal.
what
Yeah.
kind of, and then right away you should think, are we only uh, our civilization in the universe, in the
Sure,
galaxy?
sure, sure.
It's
There's
not
a lot of,
possible.
yeah, there's a lot of good
We
questions,
have
but we're
to have this in
yeah,
mind, and the official
yeah,
scientists are very aware of this idea.
yeah. That's why I'd like to have you on. You're a person I admire many years in your work. I admire. Congratulations on it, and let's be in contact so we can get you on here. Okay?
Okay,
Okay. Thank
okay,
you,
thank you.
Stoyan. One of the great guys, critical thinkers of our time. I really love Stoyan's work. And yes, here I am talking about a person who's an etherist. Can they be right? Absolutely, they can be. So, but anyways, hopefully I'll have him on. But we're gonna have to wrap it up. It's 12:05. Like many people, everybody has things to do. So let's take this out, folks. And as I always say, stay critical, stay thinking. I'm Dave Hilster, your science therapist, trying to get you to the promised land to become a critical thinker. I know lots of you are, and lots of you want to be there. Ciao for now.